Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Supply Chaney podcast. I am your host today and everyday, Nathan Chaney. And this podcast is, I think, special in that we try to spend equal amounts of time talking to our guests about their personal stories, their professional experience, and their practitioner perspective. And today we're going to talk with Roger, who is a longtime logistics and supply chain professional who is actually working on something interesting and becoming a founder and innovator like we have so many of on the podcast. And it's really born from the experiences that he's had in the industry. He's found a problem to go solve. So want to go talk about that. But first, Roger, if I could ask you to kind of introduce yourself in a little bit more detail.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Super excited to participate in your podcast. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rogelio Antillon. I go by Roger. So people, family, friends, colleagues, they all call me Roger. I'm originally from Mexico City. Was born, raised there. I studied my professional career over there. I have a background in industrial engineering, and also I studied in Mexico an MBA, Master's in Business Administration. So a true Mexico City, boy. I have been in the United States this year. I turn 20 years. It's been 20 years that I moved to this beautiful country. Most of this time, 15 years, I lived in Dallas area, DFW, with my family, my wife, my two kids. So 15 years in DFW and now 5 years in Henderson, Nevada, which is close to Las Vegas metropolitan area. So basically, it's Las Vegas.
Okay, awesome. I don't think I realized that you were here and you were my neighbor for a little while. So I must have just missed you 5+ years ago.
Probably so.
So that's I'm interested to go kind of talk a little bit more about what you're doing and keeping yourself busy with today. But before we do that, talk a little about your upbringing in Mexico City and what you were like as a child and what you thought you wanted to be when you grow up.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, my upbringing in Mexico City was a typical middle class, suburban, lifestyle family. My dad worked, my mom stayed at home. Most of the time while I was growing up, my mom stayed at home, but dad was working. So we had a very typical middle class life. Very comfortable back then. Mexico City, when I grew up in the 80s, was a beautiful city. You can go out. I remember every afternoon after school, elementary, even middle school, it just after lunch. Because remember, Mexico, we had lunch at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so not the U.S. lunch at midday. So 3 o'clock, finish up having my lunch, and then took my bike and I disappeared for the rest of the afternoon. I rode my bike all over my neighborhood, my friends' neighborhoods, all around town. So not too far because obviously Mexico City is a huge city, but spent hours in riding my bike. So it was back then a pretty safe environment, pretty safe neighborhood. So, very, very, typical upbringing. Something that really helped me ever since we were very young, my dad and my mom also, they were very much interested in my brothers and I to learn English from very early. So from a very early age, we started studying English in a bilingual school. So in fact, my elementary school is called Two United Nations. So United States and Mexico. In fact, the two owners, two lovely ladies, one of them was from the United States, one of them from Mexico. They formed this elementary school called Two United Nations.
That's fun. That's
Yes.
fun. I like how you're emphasizing that back then Mexico City was safe and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I guess you're
Fortunately,
emphasizing that a little bit because it is not quite the same anymore.
no, not quite the same anymore. I think that I would not, if my kids, if we were living in Mexico City and my kids were 10, 12, 14 years old, I would probably not allow them to go ride their bikes, in in the area that we lived. It's too much traffic to begin with, and there's, obviously there's some crime that needs to be taken into consideration for sure.
I was a similar kid. I think we could have almost been friends back then, even though I was in Texas and you were there in Mexico. But I rode my bike to school about 3 miles away from most of my years in elementary, and
Uh-huh.
I would go to my own barber appointments for haircuts, go to my own dentist appointments, ride my bike all over town. And you're right. These days, I think in most cities,
In
especially here in
most large
America,
cities.
it's not something that's incredibly feasible. Just in a select few of that, you can have this freedom of cycling. And if I fast forward to today, cycling is one of my favorite sports, and I've ridden thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of miles on a bicycle across the U.S. How about yourself? Do you still have a passion for riding?
Yes, I do. I have my bike, so that's one of the things that I really enjoy during the weekends. Go out, take my bike to the trails, spend 2 3 hours out, and then come back, and that's it. And what I tell my wife is that the other day I rode for 45 minutes, so it was quick. So when I came back, my wife was asked, "That quick? You were gonna, do some more exercise." I said, well, no, riding your bike is very efficient because the second you know, you jump into your bike, you're starting your exercise. You're already exercising, right? So you don't have to drive to a gym, take your bag, all that. No, it's super efficient. Immediately, you're just,
I agree.
burning calories.
The only thing that's more efficient than cycling is running, because if you think
Well,
about it, when you're running, you can never just roll down a hill. So on cycling, you have the luxury of rolling down hills, relaxing, right, and then you got to work up the hills. I think it's really fun when logistics people are cyclists or industrial engineers, because we think about it as a system, efficiencies, aerodynamics, all these sort of like the science behind it, I think.
Right.
How about you? How do you approach cycling? Do you kind of like nerd out on anything?
I am not too stressed out about distances or how many calories I'm burning. I'm out there to enjoy the ride. Obviously, burn calories, make exercise, but I'm not too much concerned about that. I'm more about, uh, freeing my mind of any, day-to-day worries that I may have. So I enjoy the ride. I, look at the scenery. I like riding, where there's nice scenery, the mountains, and by a lake, by nice areas. So it's more about enjoying the ride while at the same time I'm exercising for sure. But I don't. I have my my smart watch and everything, so I could count everything: miles, altitude. How many miles you rode, the altitude, the elevation. I very rarely do that. I just go out, enjoy, and ride, and then I come back exhausted. And that for me, exhausted and with a fresh mind.
Right, right. That
And
is
that
the
for me is all I need.
There you go. That's what success looks like. Success is different for everyone. Sometimes it's
Right.
I put out so many kilowatts of
Right,
energy,
exactly.
and I held an average pace of 18.5, and
Right, and it's fine. Anybody has a different way of measuring their goals. So my goal is just to go out, enjoy, do some good exercise, burn calories. If I burn, if not, that's fine.
gotcha.
But
Well,
yeah,
let's
I
talk
do
a little
still
bit
ride
about.
every week, almost 2 3 times a week.
Oh, I'm very jealous. My
Yeah.
bike misses me these days. I'm
No.
busy working. I'm curious, when you were preparing to go off to, become an adult and leave home, what was going through your mind? What did you think you were going to go do or study or become one day?
I think I was always inclined towards some engineering degree because my thought process has always been very logical, very mm, boxed, if I may use that word. My wife always makes fun of me that I'm way too boxed. You think in a box. So more was my thought process is very logical, very step one, step two, step three. I am not too. I don't have, unfortunately, any artistic gift. I don't sing. I don't paint. I don't dance. I don't. I wish I could, play the guitar or something, but no, that's unfortunately that's not me. So I'm more. Ever since I was very very young, I knew that I was going to go towards some sort of engineering. I enjoy understanding how things are created or manufactured are moved around. So that's that's where the level of logistics comes from.
Okay, all right. So you were going to pack up and go study industrial engineering. How did you find school to be, and did you have a job or anything while you're going to school?
Yes, well, the school wasn't easy for me because my older brother, 2 years old, so he went to the same college, the same university in Mexico City. So it was an easy choice. So just I rode along with him at a very good university for sure. So and they have the program that I wanted in engineering. So it was a very an easy selection for me in that regard. So we had class every day. So it's a little bit different from the college, the typical U.S. college environment, because we were still living at home. So we had classes. I had classes 7 o'clock in the morning. So obviously you woke up early in the morning, six a quick breakfast, and then 6:30, 6:35, you drive to school. Classes from 7 to 11 or 7 till noon. You came back for a nap, lunch, and then back again to school in the afternoon session, whether it was 4 to 10 o'clock at night or 6 to 10 at night. So that was a regular, Monday through Friday study shift.
It feels like you could have gotten through what would be 4 years of school here in the U.S. faster than 4 years with that kind of schedule.
Probably so. But this was a very intense program, Universidad de Anáhuac. So it was a 4 year full time, full time dedicated to school to industrial engineering. Last summer, I had the opportunity to do an internship with DuPont in the paint manufacturing site outside Mexico City. So I worked with them for the summer for 2.5 months
And
in
how
the
was that
maintenance
experience?
department.
Did it kind of put you on a path? Did it help you be inspired to kind of stay in that sort of industry or that part of the business, or did it inspire you to go chase something else maybe?
No, I really liked it because it was in the plant. So I really like the plant environment. Up to this day, I remember two things very, very, very neatly that while working in the plant. It's a paint manufacturing, so it's volatile, right? A spark could make the entire site boom, right? So one of the things that he taught me is that while walking through the plant, there were some places that you had to touch, to avoid any static electricity. So like a safety measure, right? Like, oh, you're walking through that, boom. Another time, I was obviously there's some safety lines. Certain areas that you are allowed to walk through, and some others that are working areas. I was just barely stepping onto one of the lines, and one of the supervisors immediately told me, "You need to step back," like immediately, right away. And then the third thing that I really, really remember up to these days is, I work inside the office. I had some plans, some electrical plans laid out. I remember, opening up a drawer, and then I don't know if I took a pencil or highlighter or something. I took something out of the drawer, and I kept working, right? The guy I was working with told me, "Roger, that's a safety hazard. Close the drawer right away, please." So small things, but up until this day, those have been great learnings.
Wow. Yeah, that's fun. Thanks for sharing some of that. That's very much a attention to detail, very safety focused type of
Right. So
environment.
those learnings I still have with me today. Believe me, if I go down this afternoon or today for lunch or dinner, and my wife leaves a drawer open, the first thing they would say, safety hazard.
Okay. All right. All right. My wife has a master's degree in safety engineering actually as well, and so I very much hear a lot
Oh,
of
you can
safety
relate.
focused things. Yes.
Okay.
She's going to live much longer than I am, I think. So, So after that experience and after you completed school, what happened then?
Yeah, so after that, I worked 3 years for NCR Corporation. It used to be called National Cash Registers for the U.S. manufacturer based in Dayton, Ohio, that they manufacture and distributor of the cash registers and point of sales. So I worked with them 3 years in their sales, and more than sales, it was a business development environment. So back then, NCR had a solution for a banking solution for what's called retail banking solution. So you had your branch server, and you had your terminals, and you had your special printer. So NCR provided that banking solution. So I was specialized in that solution. So my customers were the large banks in Mexico back then, like Bancomer or in Bursa, some of those banks. NCR is known industry wide for the cash register itself. So we had the retail. So those systems sold to the grocery retails, right, like a Walmart's of the world, their point of sale. But I was in the banking side, like in the banking systems side. So I worked with NCR 3 years, which that part is not too much related to logistics. But then my following positions, I started working more directly into logistics, because for 7 years I worked out of the Mexico City office for Burlington Industries in North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina. So I was in charge of the distribution network of textiles into Mexico, Central, and South America. And in Burlington, I started learning and being much more hands-on in the international logistics aspect of shipping out textiles into the entire continent, Mexico, Central, and South America. That was for 3 years, and for 7 years, sorry, and then a few more years after that, I worked 3.5, close to 4 years, with a school supplies and office supplies manufacturer in Mexico City, again distributing into Central and South America. This was more, and back then we also had large production. We placed large orders in China, in mainland China, in Ningbo. So we pretty much designed the distribution network from Ningbo to Hong Kong, putting the full containers or less than container loads into Central and South America from one end, and then from the other side, obviously the production in Mexico City had to be also sent and distributed down. So that's a time where I also learned extensively about ocean freight and logistics and transportation.
Okay, I'm kind of curious before we continue on to your next stop in your career. When you talk about banking, register systems, sales and business development, and then going to fabrics and supply chain management in that world, that seems like not a total natural
Yeah,
move.
that was a radical change. That was a radical
Yeah,
change from the system side, from the banking systems, the banking
yeah,
solutions, going into managing a distribution network of textiles into
yeah.
Central
How
and
did that
South
happen?
America.
How did you kind of make that? How did you make that jump, or what inspired it?
Uh,
I
to, I
suppose.
I think it was more. Uh, I saw a better opportunity, really, a better development opportunity uh, in Burlington back then. I saw better development, professional growth, obviously better income, uh, meeting a lot of people and traveling all around Central and South America. I think that part was something that convinced me to come along.
And do you felt like your degree prepared you for the work of what you studied?
The engineering degree will help you in everything you do in life, because it helps you to think, to have a thought process, to approach a problem with a certain uh, thought process in mind, with a certain attitude. So what's a problem? You first try to understand what's a problem, bringing all the variables, bringing all the unknowns, and then try to determine what is causing the problem, and then you try to determine how can we fix the problem. So it really, engineering helps you all through, has helped me all throughout my life, because it taught me to think.
I like it. I like it. And at some point, you went back and you got a master's degree or an MBA, I suppose.
Yes, yes. Back then, I went to school. I went back to school, also in Mexico City, to get my MBA.
Okay. All right.
Right,
You know,
right.
there's one thing I like to say is I think the most, if you want to say, powerful sort of, talent that you can have on a team in a company is an engineer with an MBA. Like that is,
Well,
a scary amount of capabilities packaged together right
I
there.
remember at school going through the MBA, one of the classes that I loved to hate was the accounting class with all the hours, hours, and hours trying to make sure that your balances match. So, yep. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's continue kind of your career story a little bit after.
Right. That was all. That was it. That was like the first half.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Then we have
All right.
after that, I came here into the United States to Texas, and I started working for uh, a manufacturer distributor of auto parts that are sold in the aftermarket. So not auto parts that go directly to Ford or General Motors, but auto parts that we sold to the AutoZone, Pep Boys, O'Reilly. So those retailers of auto parts. The company was specialized in the AC, your air conditioning system, so evaporators, condensators, hose assemblies, thousands of SKUs. It was a huge, huge. It is a huge distribution center in Louisville, Texas, and they have a refurbishing plant in Grapevine, Texas. Right.
I'm
So
in
with
Louisville right
that,
now, actually. So yeah, small world.
in Grapevine, Texas, right. So for them, I started working with them as more of a industrial engineering. With them, I kind of wore two hats: industrial engineering. So I did time studies, I did layout studies, I did a. Okay, so I used this is very cool. So I used a tool called FlexSim. So it's a 3D simulation software that allowed us to design or redesign our layout, redesign it in the system, and then throw out in orders. So the simulator would run multiple scenarios and let us know what's the ideal layout within the distribution center. So you could
Okay,
see
cool.
in the once everything was loaded, it was very graphical, very visual. It was several years ago, but still very, very, very visual, very graphical, where you could see the little forklifts moving around in the screen,
Hmm.
simulating that they were going to aisle one to pick up three evaporators or three condensators, and then go through aisle five, etc. So the entire route. So we
That
simulated
sounds.
many, many different layouts until
Uh-huh.
and that's an exercise that I believe is still done, right? So you put in the simulator your different orders, and the simulator tells you what's the better or the best layout possible to minimize. So the goal for that simulation was to minimize travel time, because in a large warehouse where you have 20, 30 order pickers. Back then, we didn't have the technology that we have now with the robots, right? So back then it was manual. Your order pickers. So reduce the travel time. It was a significant saving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. We've still got one or two stops on this career path. We want to get into your day to day too. So start bringing us home on what were your last couple stops in your career.
Last couple of stops, logistics manager for Link Transport. I managed the LTL transportation, so I helped them set up the entire LTL program from touching base with carriers, setting up the rates, selecting the TM platform, and then operating, supervising customer service personnel. So I managed the entire LTL operation for Link Transport for 7 years. And then my latest and current with PepsiCo, transportation manager overseeing the first few years freight payment, and also helping out on the day-to-day with the LTL environment, the LTL volume, and in the past couple of years, freight payment. So long story within logistics and transportation. But the past 15, I would say 10, close to 17 years, I've been hands-on in the LTL industry, in different capacities as a shipper, as a broker, and as a carrier, because at some point I owned a couple of trucks, expedited trucks that I had with Panther and FedEx Freight Custom Critical. So we moved some pallets around. So I have that experience as well as a carrier.
Okay, yeah, you do have a nice.
That didn't work out very well for me, to be honest, but it provided me a vast knowledge, tremendous knowledge from a carrier perspective. Just hiring drivers, training drivers, and calls from drivers at 2:00 in the morning that you had a breakdown, things of that nature. So.
Yep. I know how it goes. Been there myself. So kind of like, let's fast forward a little bit, I guess, to what you're doing today and the project that you're working on, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the co-founder for FreightSizer. FreightSizer is an app that runs on iPhone and iPad. It's an app that uses a combination of 3D algorithms, computer vision, and LiDAR technology. The LiDAR technology that's already embedded in your iPhone or iPad. And what FreightSizer does for you is that it provides you a very easy and efficient way to dimension your freight. So the shipper, small or large or medium-sized shipper, they can very easily, just with the use of the phone or an iPad, kind of target the freight, like a pallet, for example, as if you're going to take a picture or a small video, and just in a few seconds, through, again, computer vision, AI, and LiDAR technology, the app recognizes the edges of your freight, makes the measurements, and provides you length, width, height. It also obviously takes an image, takes a picture of your freight, and then all of that data is exported. So shippers have a very, very efficient way of dimensioning their freight with the use of their phone or their iPad. And this is very important these days because last year the NMFTA made a significant change in the way LTL freight is classified, giving much more weight to dimensions and density. So they came out with a 13 bracket scale. It's called a 13 full density scale. So basically, most of the freight is now classified depending on the density. So to get an accurate density, obviously you need an accurate weight, but also an accurate dimensions, right? Length with height.
What was the inspiration, or kind of like what drove the creation of this app? What was that spark?
Well, as in many things in life, inspiration comes from pain, right? Working so many years in the LTL, especially as a broker, where I quoted my customers a certain amount, and then when I received the invoice from the carriers, it was a different amount, so most of the times a larger amount, and most of those discrepancies in the quoted versus the actual invoice come from the fact that your freight classification was wrong, your dimensions were wrong, or your weight was inaccurate. So I thought, well, there has to be something that could help the shipper, be able to dimension their freight and have an accurate freight class, and therefore have an accurate invoice, when compared to the rate quote they obtained. So it was basically trying to make more efficient a part of the process where, to this day, many people don't have accurate dimensions of the freight.
So if I'm, going back to my warehouse days, you can use the good old tape measure type of deal to
Right?
go
Absolutely.
manually measure pallets or large boxes and things, or you've got more sophisticated systems of, sort of like scan tunnels where you can drive forklifts through and got all these
Hmm.
cameras, or you can run a conveyor through one of these things and measure it. What I would imagine that's on the higher end of cost. And so I feel like
Very,
your
very.
solution is probably somewhere in the middle.
No, my solution is, affordable to absolutely everybody. So the dimensioners that you're mentioning, they go from 25, 30, $40,000 and higher. LTL
Uh-huh.
carriers use dimensioners that are worth up $100,000. So
Okay.
great equipment, great technology, high volume, but the small and medium shipper, obviously, that may not have the space or
Mhm.
the budget or the time or the technical knowledge to install a dimensioner, whether it's a ceiling dimensioner where the cameras drop from the ceiling or a drive-through dimensioner. So anybody can use an iPhone or an iPad, and we're talking currently we want to bring in more users to the app, so we have a like a promotion where the use of the app is free, so you can use FreightSizer and dimension all your freight, get all your dimensions in an Excel file, CSV file, get images, pictures of your freight. So all that is free to use. Eventually, we will go into some sort of a subscription model, but the subscription is going to be, a fraction of the current cost of a dimensioner.
Okay, maybe digging in a little bit onto that, DIMS and information going into a spreadsheet. I suppose from an engineering process perspective, the ultimate sort of process or workflow there would be to be able to like for the system to know what pallet or what shipment, what order is being dimensioned, and as you're scanning, to be able to assign, the outputs of that directly into a system of record.
Right, correct. So there are a couple of features that FreightSizer has. So with FreightSizer, you can scan a barcode with a bill of lading or tracking number. In fact, both bill of lading and tracking number. So you can either scan it, like you scan the barcode, or you can manually type it in. And then when you mentioned how do we integrate into other systems, for sure we want to streamline the whole process. So we are API capable, so we can integrate with any system via API or via webhooks. So that transmission of data can be seamless. Once the connectivity link is set up with either API or webhooks, all that data transmission is done seamlessly. For example, you're a shipper and you're using any of the platforms in the market, any TMs in the market to obtain a rate for your LTL shipment. So you have two pallets and you go into TMA or TMB. I don't want to say any run, right? So the goal would be using FreightSizer connect to the TM. So okay, I scan pallet number one, I scan pallet number two, I have the bill of lading, I have the tracking number, and then information is transmitted via API or webhook to the TM. So now I can complete my quoting process with accurate dimensions.
I'm curious, you've been a business owner before. You were talking about having some trucks and things, and now you're building, I think what we all hear the most about, which is software and apps and,
Right, right.
technology and innovation. I'm curious, kind of like from your perspective, what are some of the challenges or things that maybe you didn't quite expect when it comes to trying to build, an app, which I think is one of the most popular sort of businesses that people are starting these days.
Well, from my perspective, for me, I was lucky because I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer. So I did an extensive research and I found a company, Magic Scan. They're based in California. They have tremendous technology. They have all the technology. They have multiple apps that do a similar process. They use an iPhone or an iPad to take a picture or a small video of any item, and through their technology, their software, they create a virtual image, a 3D virtual image of any object, a tennis racket, shoes, a car, anything you name it. And then obviously the applications are endless. So luckily for me, I was able to find a great partner. They have been a great partner. So that's why I present myself as co-founder of FreightSizer, because obviously I have to give them credit to the team in MagicScan. Now you mentioned challenges. For me, it was quite challenging because I went into a new world, a development world. I had no idea anything about developing and all the different requirements that you need to meet from a business side and also from a technology side in order for your app to be launched into public distribution.
And part of talking with me here today, I think, is probably part of your marketing strategy. So, when you have an app and you're on the store, being found and marketing and making sure that the people who are your potential users hear about you and learn
correct.
about you. How has that been? Because you've got a humongous market that covers the entire continent and beyond. So how has it been, trying to get the word out?
It's been challenging for sure. It has been challenging because, as you mentioned, it's hard to get the word out at a lower cost, right? Because I don't have millions of dollars to advertise FreightSizer in the Super Bowl, right? I wish I could. So we have to be very strategic in terms of where we put our marketing dollars, whether it's through advertising in a platform, going social media. So that has been quite challenging. Find your right marketing strategy. For us, I think we have the very first step, I think, is to identify your market. We cannot be everything to everybody. So I believe we've done a good job in identifying our market, which is the small or medium-sized shipper that needs to dimension their freight in an easy, fast, and effective way, and that they won't have the budget or perhaps even the need to have a high-end $30,000-$40,000 dimensioner. Okay. And based on identifying the market that we want to service, then the challenge has been to put the most efficient marketing, because there are so many tools out there with AI. You have you can do automated email campaigns, or you can put your advertising money in Google or social media, or so that has been challenging.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can imagine. I think that
find the right mix of marketing, the means, the budget, the frequency.
Yes. I think one of the things is I'm turning into this kind of marketing and media, sort of player, is you can have the very best widget or the very best software in the world. But if you cannot get it in front of the people and tell your story and tell how you solve the problem, it doesn't really matter how good and great your thing is. The people that need to buy it aren't hearing about it. So, as we kind of wrap things up here, Roger, any last words of advice or what you'd like to leave the audience with as we close up?
No, thank you very much for your time. I would encourage all your viewers to download FreightSizer and play around with it. Zero cost, no risk at all. You can dimension freight if you have freight. You can dimension a box if you have box. You can use it's a tool, right? So you can use it to dimension anything you want. Play around with it, especially if you are in the logistics and shipping environment. You'll see the tremendous value.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing a little bit about your personal story growing up in Mexico City and studying industrial engineering and going through kind of this career that slowly but surely became more and more about logistics and transportation and supply chain and imports and exports. I always enjoy hearing everyone's career stories, and best of luck with your future endeavors with FreightSizer.
Thank you very much. And probably next year we talk again. I'm more of a marketing because all the marketing efforts that we need to do. And, I leave my engineering, developer, logistics hat, and then I put on more of a marketing hat.
Yep. Okay. All right. Have a great rest of your day, Roger.
Thank you very much.